Hi folks, my name is Tereza and this is my YouTube channel. I want to talk to you about my experience recovering from complex childhood trauma and family scapegoating abuse and how this journey was for me. I think there are very many YouTube channels out there on this topic, on family scapegoating abuse, complex childhood trauma, and they're great. But I feel that many of them are quite theoretical and they don't talk that much about the actual practical experience of it. I'm actually this year celebrating a 10-year anniversary of when my journey of recovery really started in earnest. To be absolutely honest with you, when I first started working on my healing and I went into therapy and started educating myself about psychology and working on myself, I just thought that, this will be like 1 year and I'll be like perfectly recovered. But that's really not been the experience. I really think that if you have complex trauma, if you were born into like a very, very dysfunctional family, like in my case, both of my parents had diagnosable mental health issues. There was alcohol abuse in the family. They were using me as a scapegoat, kind of using me as sort of like an emotional punching bag. When I then had some sort of like a near breakdown and started finally like working on it and went into therapy and talking about it, then the family sort of doubled down and they started accusing me of lying and making things up to make myself look interesting. And it was really, really difficult. So there are many layers to it. And I feel when you start a journey, you have your brain is essentially wired in a very wrong way. You have very many defense mechanisms that protect you from really feeling the pain and the trauma of what you've been through and just understanding the reality of the situation. You have very many dysfunctional coping mechanisms. You have very many defense mechanisms, and you also have some sort of like an attachment wound, which kind of makes you usually seek friends or partners or situations that actually recreate the original family dynamic. So you are constantly re-traumatizing yourself, and it's very difficult to correct all of that. And my experience really has been that the mind only allows you to strip a certain layer of it so that the amount of the trauma and the flashbacks and the trauma that comes to the surface is not bigger than what you can handle, because it can get really, really overwhelming. It's like it's not just a little bit of like feeling down, it's like physical sensations, really intense kind of pain, and you can have like depressive spells. And if you were abused, as I was told by my father that he wanted me to die and things like that, and you do have some sort of like a self-destructive kind of energy in you, and that sometimes means that you can start having suicidal thoughts and things like that, and you need to develop some sort of self-soothing mechanisms. It can interfere with your work. There may be days when you are not able to work because you're so overwhelmed with all this stuff, and still you want to keep living and rebuilding your life, because you need to rebuild your life if you want to really heal. So it's a very complicated thing, and I can honestly tell you that 10 years on, I'm still struggling with things. I've definitely come a long, long way. I'm a very different person than I was. I think I do now see the situation in the family for what it was. I'm no longer blaming myself. I'm no longer accepting their story and their narrative and the blame and the shame that they try to push on me. I kind of understand that I was a child in a terrible, terrible situation. And, I should have had some support, but unfortunately, there wasn't anybody in the family who would have offered me then that support, and they all just victimized me. So I do see the situation clearly. Essentially no contact with everybody in my family, with the exception of my mother, with whom I have like a very, very sort of careful, moderate contact. It's definitely not like a normal relationship and never will be. Uh, but I'm still struggling with things like intrusive thoughts and flashbacks, especially of the secondary abuse. I feel I've sort of mostly gone over the kind of primary stuff that was happening when I was a child and a teenager, but what I still struggle with is kind of the secondary abuse, when the family sort of conspired to, paint me as like a mentally unstable person that is making up allegations. And that's something that still, can intrude on my peace. I get intrusive thoughts, I get flashbacks, and I get a lot of anger related to it. So that's still something that is happening to me, and sometimes it can be quite strong. Every time you drop a defense, you have this sort of surge of things, and things can get a little destabilized for a while. So I want to talk about all these things on this channel, and I want to talk about things that worked for me and things that helped me, and perhaps things that I tried and that didn't work, and just have like a very honest conversation about this experience, because I think there are very many people going through it, but I think that a lot of the times people don't have a real idea what it takes to really recover, and that it's not just like, oh, you spend a little bit of time in therapy and it's done, you're healed and you're like normal, and then you shouldn't moan, because that's not how it works. Like, it really is a big thing. And because your brain is wired all wrongly, if you were born into a dysfunctional, like a profoundly dysfunctional family, like your brain is wired in a crazy way, because you had these two Jekyll and Hyde personalities as parents, and your brain is virtually kind of structured around that, and it needs to come together in a new way. And there is a lot to process. There can be like historical, like generational trauma that, plays a role in how things played out for you. So there is a lot to deal with, and it's very intense, and it's physically intense and emotionally intense, and just the recovery process itself interferes with your ability to live life. And that's a fact, and I think people should be aware of it, and I think we need to have a discussion around it so that people are perhaps more supportive. And I would be really interested in hearing, other people's stories and other people's journeys. So that's enough from me today, and next time I will delve into some of the strategies and tools that I have used personally, and how they worked or did not work for me. So thank you very much for watching.